Welcome, everybody. Before we officially start, I'm Mary Peltola. Before we officially start, I wanted to ask Mike Williams to do a quick invocation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Williams. I'm a tribal citizen from Akiak, and I'll do my invocation in my language, and please do your prayers in your own way, and I really respect that. Agana tabat khilagumat khami qoya kam tanjali khanak chikap good chingulu ko khani asilingum tkawarit na kuchali mani nitili mi khani nang khn khani naqi khutut khani nunamni qailun bilkhn khwang golmda bitkluda nang tkhn qoya klutn chali ukutailit alpatata khwachnarat chali chali chuchu kamal nakhwani nullachunga Mary Peltola twani lizingamak binim kluchik human chali manna challaga awluk ngaru الصوختكم منا بسخلوكو خاني ننعبد قوياوك ستن شاليوكو تايلري تاتا وقتناغتن قوياوك ستن شخوان بيجختو جيسس أمان اختفتم ناتاكونا آمين.
Thank you, Mike. I asked Mike because I knew he wouldn't say no. I really appreciate the crowd. I wasn't expecting this many people at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night. It goes to show how important this issue is, and I don't want to waste any time with a bunch of political talk or any of that. This really is a listening session. I'm here to listen and really learn because I just know a little bit about fishing on one section of one river, and Alaska is a very big place, so many species, so many gear types, and I'm really just here to listen. So who wants to speak first? Okay, front row, Chief Gary.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Chinan, thanks for having me here. Kaska, Gary Harrison, Talchina Atlan, Nadiniana. I'm Chief Gary Harrison. I'm a water clan, and I'm from Chickaloon. And I think that what we really need is we need indigenous people set aside. We've got all of this other stuff, and it seems to me that the indigenous people here have not really been thought of. And you can talk about subsistence, but that doesn't really cover it. Subsistence, if you break the word down, sustenance is the root word, and sub is somewhere below that. And that's not what we need. We need somewhere above that. And I still use the word because it has international connotations. But what we really need is we need indigenous people set aside. We also need to stop the bycatch that's at the mouth of almost all of the rivers in Alaska. Not only that, but the commercial fishermen get a shot at the fish before they even get to the rivers. And that's where many of us indigenous people catch our fish, is on the river system. And how many years has Yukon crashed? What about the Copper River? What about the inlet right here? They don't want you to catch kings here. They want you to put them back in the Copper if you get them. And they ain't even going to allow, they've already said this year they're not going to allow king fishing and chum fishing on the Yukon. What are we supposed to do then when all of these other people take our resources before they even get to us? And I know that it's not very popular with many of the commercial fishermen saying that they need to be shut down, but what else are you going to do when all the fish crash? Are you going to be out there fighting over the last fish in the sea? No, that's not what we should be doing. We should be looking at what's really happening there. And not only is there a lot of overfishing, but what about what's happening with climate change? Is that helping the fish any? No, I don't think so. So I think with all of these things, we need to take a good look at what's really going on. And there's a few things that you need to stop. And one, you may not stop commercial fishing forever, but it needs to be stopped for a while so that the stocks can build up again, so that people can actually sustain themselves on the fish rather than have what's now the bycatch. What do they do with the bycatch at the mouth of the Yukon? They throw it overboard. There's laws against them keeping it. They don't want to keep it and give it away because it takes away from their money then to have to process these fish and give them to the people along the river that could use them because they're not allowed to subsistence fish. So that's my first volley out of the meeting here. So thanks.
Thanks, Chief Gary. Can we get a commercial? Or George? Dennis, I'm sorry.
Right. Dennis Robinson. I'm president of the Cowallingan Tribe of Alaska. Probably the most important thing we can do is follow the science. You know, it's great to be able to say that maybe we need to quit or stop the bycatch, but that's not the only problem. Are the river systems healthy enough for spawning? There's the northern pike. I get word from Bethel that you can almost walk across them in the Kuskokwim. Those little buggers eat everything, and of course the salmon's not going to get by them. And it's probably the same thing on the Yukon. The Yukon River was so warm that it killed fish before they were able to spawn. We have a bigger problem, and it's not the bycatch. We need to come to and find that problem. We need to get the funding to research what is exactly happening. King salmon, almost all across the board. California is not going to have a season this year, but it's affected. That particular fish is disappearing. But yet you look at the fish in Bristol Bay, the sockeye, record runs. You look at the pollock, a massive amount of pollock. They're catching it quicker than they've ever had before. We have an explosion in black cod. Yeah, we had the crab disappeared, but that's, they say likely to a temperature change in the water. Luckily enough, that the temperature dropped that other 2 degrees, but it's going to take 10 years to rebuild that stock. So the problem is a lot bigger than just who's catching what. The entire life cycle of a fish needs to be supported, and that's from the time and the place where it spawns to the time it gets back to spawn again. And the other question is, what effect on our wild stocks are the massive amounts of hatchery fish coming out of Asia and Russia? What effect does that have on our wild stocks? Those are questions that need to get answered. And we can't be chewing each other up until we can actually answer the question. And we can't be playing with people's lives by guessing, oh, maybe we need to stop the fishery. Well, that's going to hurt thousands of more families than, So we need to find answers. Thank you.
Rob Sanderson in the back. I'm trying to do a little bit of geographics and a little bit of different user groups.
Yeah, thank you. Rob Sanderson, Clinton Heights Central Council, Vice President. I represent, okay. I just got off the jet and I apologize. Flying all day just to get here. This is not my first meeting here. I've been attending these meetings for over 21 years now. I commercial fished a majority of my life. I've run boats to Seattle back, when I was 18. My father used to take our purse seiner all the way out to Cold Bay from Heidelberg, Alaska, Haida. My family's no stranger to fisheries. There's a lot of finger pointing around, but the ones that are suffering the most are our native people. I walked in the finest of both worlds. Don't get me wrong. I can deal with any one of you guys on a personal basis on a Sunday issue as raised by a genius. You know, we can point at bycatch. We can point at climate change. The bottom line is, though, that the Native people in Alaska are the ones that are hurting the most. They don't have the billions of dollars to get their families fed. They're making bigger trawlers. You know, it's just a matter of time. You can say whatever you want about, you know, bycatch not having an impact on this. I call that. I'll disagree with you on that respectfully. You know, more and more people that fish in the trawl fishery are starting to come forward and tell their story about what's actually going on in the Bering Sea and in the Gulf of Alaska. Make no mistake, it's not sustainable. This fishery will collapse in our lifetime. It will. Mark my words. If some of us don't kick off before then, you know. You talk about the science, what happened in the red king crab fishery in the Gulf of Alaska. Gone. You know, you look at almost every major fishery in the world, gone. You look at the state of Alaska's management of the herring fishery, you know, all the way back in the territorial days, gone pretty much except for Sitka Craig and little spot areas around southeast Alaska. Auk Bay used to be the second largest herring fishery run in southeast Alaska, hands down. Then Craig afterwards. You know, and that all went downhill because of mismanagement. You know, and we need to take a good look at ourselves. I know a lot of people make a lot of money, you know, and fill their pockets, you know, in this industry. But when I think about our people along the Kuskokwim River and the Yukon, and even some places in southeast Alaska, they're hurting. And when that food source runs out, we're in trouble. You know, every time we put up a good candidate, a good qualified candidate for the council, it gets rejected. You know, we had a very outstanding young lady in Melissa ready for council, and we got 2 fishing game guys and another guy with the CDQ pack out in Bristol Bay. Where's the diversity there? You know, one thing I will tell this group, and I have a lot of respect for everybody sitting in this room, is that we're coming. More and more people are getting educated every day. We got good young people getting college educated that actually fished in the, you know, in different types of fisheries in the Bering Sea, the Gulf of Alaska, the Eastern Gulf, where I fished the majority of my life. The greater body is starting to know what's going on out there. And then you're not going to be able to eat $1. And to our friends that live, to my native friends that live on the Kuskokwim and the Yukon and other smaller river systems in Alaska, you know, we really need to bear down and start joining forces, and Clinkenhaida joins you in this effort, because if we don't, they're going to continue to walk all over us. And before I shut down, you know, I understand that it's not just not bycatch. I've heard reports, you know, coming from the scientific committee from NOAA about the warming of the Bering Sea, the Gulf of Alaska. Heck, even in southeast Alaska, we had a lot of die-off because the smaller river systems we weren't getting that much rain last year. You know, so, you know, it's all of the above, but, you know, we really need to take a look at bycatch, because nothing else is really getting looked at, to be honest with you. Well, it's just tired of seeing our people suffering while others fill their pockets.
And a lot of us eat your herring eggs, so we're with you on the herring issue too. So thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Rob. So I don't want this to be a one-sided conversation. We didn't have a real lineup. Stephanie Madsen, yeah. Here you go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Stephanie Madsen, a longtime resident of Alaska, lived 19 years out in the Aleutians. I work for the pollock industry, and yes, we incidentally catch salmon, both the Chinook and chum. But I'm here to tell you that we understand, we're listening, we hear you. We have partners that are in the CDQ world, and we hear from them. I think that, Representative, the thing that you can do most for us is to facilitate conversations. We've heard that people want to work together, but it's difficult to work together if we're not communicating. And so we tried to provide a session last night to talk about our salmon avoidance plans and help people understand what the incentives were, what the penalties were, how it works. But quite frankly, we didn't get hardly any participation from a lot of the people that are concerned about bycatch. So I just put out there that the industry is willing to do its part. We are trying. It's difficult to find a Chinook or chum in a pollock tow. I do want to remind folks that we have 2 observers on every vessel, so I'm not quite sure, who is reporting on what, but we have 2 federal observers. We have a bunch of cameras to make sure that none of that salmon goes overboard before it's counted by an observer. Yes, we are regulatory required to discard that salmon unless it goes into food bank programs. We are willing to do what we need to do to try to get some of the food bank hubs improved. We're willing to sit down and talk about potential other options to look at it, but to completely think that we're going to be able to rebuild the stocks in Western Alaska by stopping the pollock fishery, I think that the science doesn't support that. I know there's different opinions about that, and I'm really glad that people are getting involved, that the younger people are getting involved. We're looking at the science, but we need to communicate. And that's what I would request. This is a good opportunity for us, Representative, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Stephanie. And this would have been longer, but we didn't want folks to be double booked here tonight. And I know 1 hour is not nearly enough for a fish meeting. Jahak, I'll go back to you in just a minute. And I don't want you thinking that I'm just going to call on Native folks. So let's see some non-Native hands. Okay.
After hearing what I've heard now and everything that we've been working on the last 8 months, it's time to file for Endangered Species Act protection for Yukon and Kuskokwim salmon and shut the trawl fishery down completely, period. Okay, we've been at this for 10 years explaining to them, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the exact escapement numbers. Here's the exact numbers of what's missing out of each river system. And it's just fallen on deaf ears. And we're going to give $3 million to Donald Trump to get reelected. We're going to go with his route. He has better interests than our interests, right out of Chuck Bundren's mouth. So we're over it. So now it's just time just to file it with the Endangered Species Act protection and protect the very last fish that we have. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to ask people to say their name beforehand. Sorry. Okay. Let me go with you, and then James Nickray.
Thanks, Congresswoman. We met recently in Washington, D.C. My name's Heather Mann. I work with and for the Midwater Trawlers Cooperative. I have 17 trawl catcher vessels that participate in the pollock fishery in the Bering Sea. As of today, we have caught close to 70 million pounds of pollock, and we have intercepted 1,000 Chinook. That's 1 Chinook for every 30 metric tons of pollock. That is an outstanding job that these boats are doing. They're using excluders. They have strategies. They're sharing information, and we're delivering millions and millions of pounds of fish into Alaskan communities. Like Stephanie said, we do hear what is going on, and we are working to do our very best to minimize our interaction with salmon. Right now, we've got a group of 10 people at St. John's University up in Newfoundland. They're in the flume tanks on their own dime to get there, working on improving excluders to use in real time. We are working on it. It is not falling on deaf ears. I just want everybody to know that. It's not just about money. I sit on the AP and I'm hearing all day, all you care about is money. And that's not true. We are not robots. We are human beings with families. We all care about the well-being of our families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. My name is Adam Cuthrell. I own a guide service here in Alaska. We guide trips all over the state, and there is science there that shows that the smolt are making it out to the ocean. They're not making it back. 100 dead kings could make 100 more babies, could make 100 more babies. This needs to happen now. Sport fishing generates so much money for this state. We haven't been able to fish for kings for the last 5 years, and we can't again this year. We're losing trips. We're losing bringing people to this amazing state. To catch the fish, let it go so it can make babies and procreate so that our native people can have food to eat, not to line pockets of big industrial fishing corporations. We do need to look after the natives of this land and the people who actually live here and put money in Alaska.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say. Oh yes, I'm very sorry. My name is Joseph Afghan. I'm originally from Nunamik on the mouth of the Yukon River, and that town is known for catching a lot of real high quality king salmon, chum salmon, all kinds of salmon. And I would like to say that I am totally disappointed as to how the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council had voted on, and also the Alaska Board of Fish recently, that went against that put me in a situation as an elder never ever to taste, consume salmon of any kind for the rest of my life. The Yukon salmon I'm talking about. And I wish somebody would help us get this salmon going again, because or replenish the salmon again. Ms. Peltola, there has been a lot of people that do not have any or very little confidence in you, and I noticed that you are the only delegate to the U.S. government that speaks for us, and I am very happy about that. And I wish the senators would come in and help you. And I don't know too much about the senators, but I do know about the politics. And as far as the Republicans are concerned, they are interested in making money. And I'm glad that you are for the Yupik people. Thank you very much.
No, and Joseph made a good point. He said there are people who do not have confidence in me. One person cannot change this whole situation. It's taken us 30 years to get here, most especially in the last 15, and one person can't change it overnight. It's going to take all of us in this room working for 30 or 60 years or just a very long time to get there. And I promised James he could speak, and then we'll diversify it. We'll get it over there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. James Nickray from Quithluk. It's on the right along the tributary of the Kuskokwim River on the southwest side of Alaska. And growing up, that was our food. We didn't talk about commercial fishing. We were mostly gathering the fish for our food. And we survived on it all winter, because there was only one store that kept its grocery canned goods for a whole year. And that was what we survived on. And as you know, there's lots of talk about these trawlers and bycatch. Those aren't the only problems. Like that person that said before me. as you know, we have to eat and survive. So does the fish. When those trawlers rake the bottom of the ocean, rake it, and there's nothing left, what are those fish going to survive on? If they have no food, they'll get smaller and fewer as they return. That's one of the problems. And the other problem is in the spawning tributaries. We have been getting too many beavers where they are blocking the streams where they spawn. That's our end. And that other end that I was talking about is on the ocean end. We have to work on both ends. We just can't point our fingers at this and that. Like we all live in Alaska, and we try survive off Alaska. And if we're going to do that, we have to help each other. If one side gets too much and the other side doesn't get anything, that seesaw is going to wobble. So we have to work together. We don't have to, we can't see each other. I cannot point this way and I cannot point this way and tell them, you are doing this and you are doing that. We have to get together and work together if we are going to survive. This is our land, and we love it. And like our ancestors used to tell us, if you take care of the land and the ocean and the ocean will take care of you. So we have to take care of both ends so we can have some fish we like for dinner. Everybody loves the fish, no matter how you cook it. There's different ways of cooking it and different ways of enjoying it. At one time I was cooking for my wife, and she looked around and said, "What's your pot and pan?" I said, "We don't need one. All I have is tin foil." So I cooked it without pot and pan, and we enjoyed it. So those are some of the problems that we have to look at. The Kuskokwim River, as I see it, used to be our Safeway and cars in the summertime. We get our fresh fish whenever we want. Now it's like a mom and pop store. It opens up, and sometimes when it opens up, it's short on supplies. It's not something that we have to point at each other and blaming each other for things that are dwindling. We have to work together. That's what brings us together like this. So we have to think about this after this. Thank you for listening, and have a good Easter.
Brianna Chachak, I said I was going to come over here. Yes, okay.
Thank you. My name is Greta Gudmundsson. I'm a member of the AP. We spent most of the day on salmon issues, and I feel their pain. But I'm a crab fisherman, and to do with crab, our snow crab is closed, our king crab is closed, and a lot of the reason we get is climate change. And that seems to be an easy way out. Climate change, you know, you got to deal with it, and there's nothing we can do. But the rest of the world, I read an article in Seafood News this morning. This year, we're going to have the largest worldwide snow crab fishery since 2012, and that's with 0 pounds coming from Alaska. So if the U.S. border stops climate change, that's the only thing it stops. So I don't get it, but we need, I've listened to the salmon thing all day long. It's been a long day at the AP, and like I said, I feel their pain, but crab is in a similar situation, and we need to, whether it's maybe some temperature issues, maybe it's management issues, and we manage very differently than Canada does, than Russia does, Norway. I think Greenland, between those four, those are exceeding the worldwide supply since 2012. And like, again, I say, like, that's with 0 from Alaska. We should be part of that issue at 100, 200 million pounds, but like we had in the past. I don't know what the issue is, but it needs to be checked out and approached and not ignored. And it's, I don't know, it needs to be paid attention to more than it is at the moment. Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't vouch for my senators. I just want to say this really quickly. Senator Murkowski, her mom was born and raised in Nome. She was born and raised in Ketchikan. They are salmon people. Senator Sullivan's wife is from the Yukon. They are salmon people. So I know they deeply care about all of these issues too. And so can I get a halibut fisherman? Who here is a halibut person? We've heard a lot of salmon, 1 crab. Okay, Linda Benken, come on up here. Linda Benken, come on down. Yeah, then you come running. Yeah, okay, Linda Benken.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for holding this opportunity for people to speak. And it's really impressive to see the gathering in this room. I've been fishing for a long time. I have never been so worried about our fisheries as I am right now. I believe climate change is playing a huge role in what we're seeing happen in our ocean. I think if you're following the science, you have to recognize that. It's playing a role in the decline of crab, in the decline of salmon, in the decline of the halibut that we depend on as well. It's not the only factor. I'm not saying other people's concerns are not completely valid. We have to take care of habitat. We have to address bycatch issues. We have to think about who has access to these fish and who really depends on them, and we have to take care of their needs. But I would ask that everybody recognize the role that we as commercial fishermen can play in addressing climate change. I don't see our industry standing up enough to say we need to do something about climate change. We are jobs and doing something about climate change. We're not jobs or climate change. People are losing their livelihood right now, and a big part of that is because we're seeing warming oceans, ocean acidification, warming rivers, and there's not enough being done. So I would certainly ask people to come together around all the issues. As the gentleman was saying, it's in the ocean, it's in the rivers, it's every part of these fish's life cycle that we have to take care of. And I'd ask you to help us with that, as well as our senators. I think we're doing what we can. Our fishermen are doing what we can. We need more of the industry to stand up, and we need our leadership to stand up to take care of our fish. Thank you.
Charlie Wright, and then we'll have another commercial person.
Thank you. Thank you all. As you hear us over and over from the interior, I'm from the Yukon, Rampart, right in the middle of Yukon. I advocate for 40 tribes in my region, and we lost our salmon on the river. We all know that. We went to the Board of Fish. We went to try to get Area M to work with us to try to figure out, make some windows to let some salmon through. We asked them, the trawlers, to do the same. So we all standing here saying, let's work together. So why is it so hard for us to do a little test fishery, an Area M June fisheries, to let some windows, let some salmon by? If it doesn't work, if it doesn't change anything, hey, let's move on and try to figure it out somewhere else. Same thing with trawling. Put your money where your mouth is and let's do a little test fishery. And then we can eliminate that. If it ain't trawling doing the trouble with the salmon, then you go on fishing and we keep moving to try to figure out the problem. It's not really that tough of a thing to figure out. We just got to work together like everybody's saying. It ain't that hard to figure out. Writing's on the wall. I just say let's work together like it's being said. So we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Could I get a sport fish person? I know all these subsistence folks were like, you know, all these folks wanting the mic, but we got to spread it around. So here's a sport fisherman.
Hi, I'm Blair Hickson from the Anvik River Lodge. Blair Hickson from the Anvik River Lodge. So the Anvik River is a really unique river to the Yukon system. Back in the day, we used to get about 40 or 50% of the entire Yukon chum run up there. Now those numbers would go up to 1.5 million. This past season, we had a little under 40,000 enter the river system. Now, what's really fun about my job is the fact that I'm out there every day, and I've been there for 28 years. My parents, I'm originally from Bethel, you actually spoke at my graduation in 2008. Hey, no, I look a lot different now. So, but during that time, over 28 years, we've seen, you know, runs of 700, 800,000, 500,000. That was average. A low year was 350,000. 2021 was 19,000. 2022 was 40,000. And when you're out there and you're on the river and you're observing, you're seeing how the fish can move up the system and how they make their beds along the way. Well, what they traditionally used to do is they would go through and they'd set their bed and they would stay on top of that bed. The parents would stay there until they decomposed and died, and then their children would eat them later on. Well, now what they're doing is very different. They're not just sitting in one spot. They're continuously moving up the river system, finding good habitat, and constantly spreading their eggs further and further and further up the streams, trying to spread it out. That lets me think that there's plenty and plenty of good habitat. There's just not the population that there needs to be. Now, the pink salmon as well, on pink ears, when we get pink ears, they come in behind the chums and they make their beds over the top of the chum beds, rooting up all of that. Now, I know the state of Alaska has been, you know, stocking pinks into the system, and those have been mixing with the wild herds and all that. But at the end of the day, in my life, the fish used to be so thick you could walk across the river on their backs. Now you can't even find them. We haven't been able to fish for years, and as a result, we can't sell trips because who's going to come fish when there's nothing there? So, you know, there's obviously some big issues going on, and I just ask everybody to think about what can we do, because we've been blessed with a beautiful place, beautiful home, and it's our job to take care of it. So thank you for listening.
So let's do another commercial person and then a subsistence person. Who's a commercial person in here who wants to have a turn at the microphone? Sure, yes, a community person. Thank you. Come on up and tell us your name.
So, my name is Julie Bonney, and I live in Kodiak, Alaska, which is the third largest port in the nation, and it's the most diverse fishing port in the nation. And what makes us successful is because we have every commercial fishery all year long, starting January 1st until about the 15th of November. And trawlers are important in that suite of fisheries. So from a community perspective, I get very concerned about the talk of shutting down the trawl industry, because that would mean that we would go from a year-round fishing port to a seasonal port, and our processors are year-round processors, so that means our resident processor labor can't live in our community anymore, and they're going to leave. We're already seeing about a 1% population drop annually, and yeah, I feel terrible for what's going on in some of these communities with salmon, but I also worry about some of the policy discussions that if they actually came to truth, my community would be a whisper of what it is today. So hopefully we can balance policy so that everybody can be better off, but I still think the science is lacking to really understand what's going on in some of the Western Alaska salmon in terms of climate change, what's happening in the rivers, what marine survival looks like. So we need to really get into the science to understand that versus the gentleman that was, you were great, where it's not about this blame or that blame. We all got to figure out the conversation to try to figure out the solution. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I agree. In the back, and Melissa, I am going to get to you in a second.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, cool. My name is Keenan Sanderson. I come by way of Ketchikan. I wear a number of hats nowadays. I'm the president of the Ketchikan Clinton-Oneida Community Council. I'm the vice president of the Ketchikan Gateway Borough School District down in Ketchikan, one of the largest school districts in the state. And I'm the Indigenous Food Sovereignty Specialist for the Ketchikan Indian community, among other things. And actually, I'll mention one other hat that I wear. I'm also the head coach for the Ketchikan High School Ocean Science Bowl program that's done within, technically around the country, but mainly in our state. I'm going to be as brief as I can, hopefully more brief than my father. His Haida name is Gusoa, which means talks too much, so I'm going to attempt to talk less than him. I'm gonna first and foremost say outright that I don't want to see the pollock fishery go away. I have a lot of commercial fishermen within my family on both sides, trollers, seiners, longliners, I think a couple of gillnetters. And I see, people make money off of fish, and I can relate to that on that level. But I do believe that more needs to be done in order to protect Western fish in general, but for the most of the reason why a lot of people are here, we need to do more to protect Western Alaska chum salmon. There's not one smoking gun, and I think a lot of people have said that. Of course, there is climate change, there's ocean acidification, increased sea surface temperature of the sort. And I agree, we should be funneling a lot of money into all that research. I'm a big science nerd. I went to the University of Alaska Fairbanks and got my degree in fisheries and ocean sciences there, graduated in 2019. I think by bridging Western science and traditional ecological knowledge, I think we can get a really good picture of what's actually going on out there, so that we can make the best decision for everybody involved. But in this current state, especially with our country, and I appreciate Representative Peltola for doing all the work that she does with this, but she's only one person, and we have a House majority in DC that would never, or that would likely never fund any of this stuff. Jim Jordan from Ohio, he posts tweets all the time, and he's like, oh, why are we funding salmon and plankton research in Alaska when we should be doing other stuff? Like, there's a lot of people who think like that, and it's an uphill battle for us when it comes to that. And then as a North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, AP, Science and Statistical Committee, they don't have a management tool to be able to affect change within climate change. That's just the reality. They do, however, have the jurisdiction to make regulatory change, significant regulatory change that can help the people across our state, which I have two solutions that may be able to help out with that. First is something I don't think is much of a secret, but with the reauthorization of the Magnuson-Stevens Act, adding 2 additional tribal seats on the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council will help give Indigenous voices a lot of power in making these decisions, and therefore including that traditional ecological knowledge. It is so important that we do that, because I am a firm believer when you mix those 2 together in an effective way, we can make a lot of good change for everybody. But until that, I mean, I'm glad that we got an Indigenous seat on the advisory panel, but that's not enough. It's just not enough, in my opinion. So my first ask, Representative, is to continue that fight to make sure that you add Indigenous voices within the body that actually gets the final vote. My other thing that I see, especially within my community of Ketchikan and plenty of other communities around Alaska, is that I don't believe, and I know this is kind of like not, it's related but not, we're not doing a good job raising our youth to take our spots as we get older. As I said earlier, I run a program called the Ocean Science Bowl Program in Ketchikan, and I'm doing my best to encourage and engage high school students in all aspects of ocean sciences and fisheries and atmospheric science and of the like, so that, you know, people can be like me and come testify to the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council. They can go be biologists and geneticists and things of that matter. But there's no funding for that. And it's the same thing with climate change. You know, we have a house at, you know, a house in DC, and even in Alaska, where they're playing with our students' education. But Representative, the other ask, and I know this is probably a larger conversation for later, but specifically allocating funds to encourage and promote fisheries and ocean sciences to the youth of Alaska and even across the country is something that I think is going to be really important. Because as you said, this is going to take 30 to 60 years or even beyond that to hopefully get past this problem. So yeah, anyways, thank you.
Thank you for that. And I know a lot of different regions are doing things to bring young people in, and the university has programs now to bring people into fisheries management. Melissa, before I go to you, can I do one more commercial? I just feel like this is, and the other thing I want to say is, I think a lot of the people who are jumping up to speak are speaking because they don't have a seat on the AP and they're not on the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council and they don't feel like they have a voice. So I think that's why so many people are kind of rushing to the mic here from one sector. Can I get a commercial person or sport person before I go to Melissa? Let me just go to folks who haven't had a turn yet. Okay, one in the back and one over here. So let's go to you.
Hi, my name's Javen Tun. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. It's Javen Tun. So I grew up a block away from here, and my dad's boats were parked a block away from here. My earliest memory is driving up to Fairbanks to put my dad's gill netter in. Unfortunately, the fishing dried up and he had to sell that boat, his 3 tenders. Later, I started fishing on a Dutch. So I have worked in the wheelhouse and I have worked on deck on the factory trawlers. I've worked long lining. I fished Bristol Bay. And I feel like there's a lot that is not known about the actual operation for the general public. So the first thing is that on most commercial fishing boats, there is a federal observer that is present and they watch the flow scale. They see all the fish that go through. Additionally, all the salmon, you know, a certain number of count, the fins are clipped. The fishing industry is trying to do their best within what the rules and regulations are. And there's been so much positive change since the 80s and, you know, like removing the row stripping. There's so much that has happened that's been positive. And a guy that has been trawling for 30 years, basically he told me that you guys set the rules and we will do our best to follow along those lines. And as fishermen, we want to allow the fish to survive and to make the most out of that resource. My dad was a farmer before he became a fisherman. Although he's out of fishing now, he owns a sushi restaurant. So fishing is like through and through. So I mean, I have 3 kids. Hopefully, there'll be a resource for them to have. And my best friend, he's from Quiggins. So these things are really important. And I can't thank you enough for what you've been doing, for asking the questions and trying to bring this issue and bring a voice to everybody, all the stakeholders. So I really appreciate what you do. Thank you.
And I appreciate your expertise. Melissa, finally, okay. Oh, good, you're gonna come up here. A lady who needs no introduction.
Oh, geez. No, it's Melissa Johnson, 2 L's, 1 S. For the record, since he's got pen and paper right there. Wangamak toyak nalak mi tun Melissa Johnson, sitnasa milhorunga, pangmapak kisakafing mi inyurunga. Savaktunga, Arctic Yukon Kuskokwim Tribal mi, Sully, University of Alaska, Anchorage me. So my Inupiaq name is Maktoyak. My English name is Melissa Johnson. I'm originally from the community of Nome, but I live here in Anchorage. I work for the Arctic Yukon Kuskokwim Tribal Consortium as the Government Affairs Policy Director. I also work at the University of Alaska Anchorage and teach Intro to the Inupiaq Language Part 1 and 2. There's a lot of representation in this room that, and I also serve on the advisory panel for the North Pacific Fishery Management Council. What I wanted to say is that there's a lot of representation in this room, but the marine ecosystem issues that are occurring, that some of us sit in these management bodies, they don't just impact the Gulf of Alaska, from southeast all the way through Kodiak, down the Aleutian on the other side. They don't just stop in the Nome area. The issues that we, as the management authority on this federal level, they impact our traditional knowledge sharing. When I was being mentored by Dr. Edna McLean in the North Slope Inupiaq language, when I would get herring eggs or smoked salmon or any other salmon, I would share with her as something that was taught to me. The way that it came back to me is I would get foods from the North Slope or from St. Lawrence Island, and in trading those foods, we also trade our culture, how we do things, the impacts that it makes, and we give that taste to our children. So that way, when they continue to grow, that they thrive for that taste. If we don't have that taste, then it's going to continue to cause all these ill social factors. In October of last year, at the advisory panel, I asked for 2 designated tribal seats on the AP. When it got to the council, we got 1. I'm not the designated seat holder. Shawan Jackson Gamble is. We don't have the same equitable representation for people who, Indigenous peoples of Alaska, when they provide testimony to the advisory panel, they have someone they can look to who understand where they're coming from. On the council, we do not have that. There has been talk that, oh, there's the CDQ. CDQ does not represent all 229 tribes of Alaska. CDQ and commercial fisheries, other commercial fisheries, don't help meet the needs of the rest of Indigenous peoples. So, Koyana for allowing this time, and like Gretar and Heather and others have said, we're coming back tomorrow morning, so you guys can come back tomorrow morning and hear more about salmon.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. And for those of you who need to leave at 9, you're excused, but I've got the go-ahead to stay till 10. That's when we have the room until, because there just seems to be a lot of desire. So I'm going to do you, and then I'd like somebody from a CDQ to have a turn. One of you guys, I can see a few of you in the audience.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, my elders that have spoken before me. I waited, and I've learned to, I'm only 30. I just turned 30 this year. But I've been speaking about the issues of our salmon from the beginning of Pebble Mine. And I just wanted to hear from my elders from the rest of the regions of Alaska. I thank you for speaking out. And trawler bycatch has been always an issue throughout the state, I believe, and even impacting from Bristol Bay. My name is Chelsea Kasile Decker. I am originally from the Bristol Bay region, and our issues are very valid. Our issues are from the time of learning and following and learning to follow the science and learning from the Pebble Mine. And thank you, EPA, 404C, EPA Clean Water Act, for protecting our Bristol Bay salmon, because that is the last 5 salmon of our worldwide impact. And everybody that spoke before me are speaking on valid issues about the salmon, about the halibut, about the crab, of everything I eat, of everything that I adore. And I'm feeding on to my child, and it is very valid. I hear the issues, and I am learning, and I am continuing to learning. I have spoken in person, gone to DC myself as a growing person, as a youth, advocating for our fish. That's my region, but also advocating for my caribou and my moose, advocating for my way of life, which I shouldn't be advocating for my way of life. The life that I was taught from when I was a child, and now we're continually advocating from this trawler bycatch that is very affecting the Bristol Bay region, and also climate change. As we go up later in the season, we're wondering, our gold king salmon is not there. We are there, my family and me. We are there 3 a.m., 3 p.m. We are there in between, and you have to be there, and you have to just be there knowingly in those times. And if you're not there in between those times, 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, when the king salmon hit our region now, and we just had board a fish meeting where they were trying to limit our subsistence lifestyle, the lifestyle that has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Our people had to advocate there for our lifestyle. I thank those people for speaking out. I thank them every day. Thank you for speaking out for our region, because this is what we need. And you don't see too many people in this room and too many people that has advocated for our salmon, for our lifestyle in different parts of the region of Alaska. And Koyana Representative Mary Peltola, for really listening to Alaska Native Indigenous people and the tribes in this region. You represent very valid points. What I'm getting to is king salmon that is very valuable, and a lady that has spoke about trade. We trade not only with fish for the people from up in the Barrow-Utakavik region, we trade for the herring eggs. We still trade to those types of things. We trade our king salmon, we trade our red salmon, and we trade our chum. And just wrapping up, we don't see those things. If you're not there for the king salmon, you're not there. You don't get them. You don't get king salmon. And we're there. We're doing the hard work. We're putting in the gas. We're putting in the sleep. Loss of sleep. We get an abundance of reds. We get an abundance of red salmon. But the kings is really being affected by the trawler bycatch. And from everything else to climate change, I know I'm supposed to be wrapping up. From climate change, moose season, we go up to the sloughs where we are supposed to be. Our sloughs are no longer there because we see our pike, we see our grayling, and our sloughs and our creeks that where we're supposed to be having water are not there. Everything that I've been taught my entire life, and that's the only thing that's been taught to me, are no longer there. So I am, like I said at the beginning, I'm only 30 years old, and these things have been taught to me my entire life. And all of these things are slowly slipping away. And it's not only this, all of these things that we're speaking out are very valid, even to the sports fishermen. And I thank you so much, Mary Peltola.
Thank you, and I love that in Alaska, a 30-year-old is considered a youth. That's good. Luke Fanning, would you mind taking a turn here?
Thank you, Mary. My name is Luke Fanning. I work for the Aleutian-Pribilof Island Community Development Association, which is one of the CDQ groups. And in the interest of full disclosure, I'm also a commercial fisherman. I gill net for salmon, I long line for halibut, and I've even dabbled in tanner crab. So I walk away from a lot of fish meetings confused at times. But I'm here today to speak a little bit about the CDQ program. And the first thing I want to acknowledge is the collapse of the salmon in the Yukon-Kuskokwim. The devastation that we've seen there is nothing short of heartbreaking. The communities that I serve and our program serves help provide basic necessities, economic development for 65 communities in Western Alaska. And the communities that we serve and the kinds of projects we're engaged on provide for things like safe drinking water, power generation, and a lot of things that most of our communities in Alaska take for granted. And I can't overstate how important those things are. And I want to just take a quick minute and point out that there's a lot of wisdom in the room tonight. And I want to thank Mary for creating the listening session. And some of it I heard, I'm sorry, I missed your name in the beginning, James. But James spoke earlier today about pointing fingers and how important it is for us to listen and really seek to understand each other and where we're coming from. And I think that when it comes to assessing the trade-offs, when it comes to assessing the causes, the traditional knowledge, and all of these things, I guess I would just ask the leaders in the room to help us channel what James mentioned. And as we're thinking about pointing fingers, we're assessing the science. Let's take the time to listen to each other. Let's take the time to listen to the fishermen in the room. Let's take the time to listen to the other families that are affected, because the things that we're dealing with are so incredibly consequential and feel overpowering and outside of our controls. And I'm talking about climate. And I'm talking about some of the other things that we need to deal with. But I would ask that folks bear that in mind and take into consideration to the 65 communities in Western Alaska that are counting on the CDQ program. Thank you very much.
We're trying to get some cold air in here, and there's still seats in here if anybody wants to come up here. I see Jimmy Hurley. Does anybody from the Nome region or Unalakleet want to turn at the mic? Jimmy Hurley, you're on from, remind us the village? Wait, Ekwok.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Hurley. I reside on Anushiak River. You know, we're the #1 in the world. But it wasn't so, you know. We've, back when there was trouble with the king salmon on the Anushiak River, I remember commercial fishing there. We got a lot of kings. But with Peter, Christopher, and I, and some of the people on the advisory committee, we shut that area down. Even when we were making money, that's why we have kings. And just lately, the lady talked about the state level where you have, you know, the mixed stock that in the Anushiak River, that's what was killing some of our fish. So it's been a long journey. You know, I played every game in this. I did trawling and pretty much everything, you know, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I know it's really good to have fish, you know, but that's why I'm speaking. I don't want Anushiak River to go like Yukon or the Kuskokwim, you know. There's no way that, you know, but not too long ago at the Board of Fish, everybody sacrificed. The commercial fishermen, sports fishermen, and subsistence they left alone. So that's a real priority. That's really good. I could see where, you know, the state is finally turning their cheek and it's going on our side. It's about time, you know, because we're all fighting over kings, you know, and but the mixed stock and the Anushiak is almost kind of like the bycatch. That's how I look at it. I've been out there, I know. I've seen the sloppiest fisheries in the world, you know, but I'm not going to talk about that. You know, and it's science. We're looking at science and cutting our fishing time down in the Anushiak district. That's what it is. It's no science. You don't see 700 boats in the Anushiak fishing district. You think any kings or anything? Not even one fish is going to go up that river. So think about that. You know, it's just like the same thing with interception with bycatch. You know, you got to consider that. I mean, but I've said many times that it's a throw your overboard stuff. You know, and I did it. I throw kings and chums and everything over there. You know, but it was my job. But now I see it wasn't a very good job. You know, but. Anyway, thank you very much. That's all I want to say. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Jimmy. Is there anybody from South Central? Kenai, you, and then you in the by the doorway with the beard. Yep.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Steve McLean. I am the managing director of World Wildlife Fund's U.S. Arctic program. And Melissa, my mother, was always so pleased when you would bring the herring to her house for the Inupiaq lessons, so Nukbuk. One of the things that we've heard around here are two different perspectives on the same sort of a problem. There's nobody in this room who wants to see the salmon stocks continue to decline. There's nobody in this room, I think, who wants to see people in the villages and on the rivers suffering. The bounty that we have in Alaska can serve both processes, can serve the commercial fisheries, can serve subsistence fisheries, and it should. What we have right now is a problem of a tool. The North Pacific Fishery Management Council, and I spent 10 years working for the council, is a great tool for what it does. What we're starting to see now are changes that are happening faster than the council can keep up. If you look at the distribution of fisheries amongst the different user groups, who gets what, those sorts of questions that the council has always addressed, It's been very good at that. Right now, things are happening so fast that the council process has trouble keeping up with it. It's a 7-year process to put abundance-based halibut management in place. It's a 5-year process to put the initial salmon bycatch reduction measures in place for the pollock fishery. It's 2 years to get a regulatory change through. They can happen faster, they can happen by emergency order. It's rare. We've seen what has happened as people have tried to put emergency orders into place. Sometimes it meets the criteria, sometimes it doesn't. But the council is very good at making those sorts of decisions. So what we need to see now is another tool, not to replace the council, but to work in concert with the council. We have to be able to act quickly. We have to be able to address these existential problems that climate change is bringing, that ocean acidification is likely to bring, that these different problems happen so fast. We need a way, Representative, to be able to work with the council and in concert to address some of these questions that the council simply, in its current state, is not prepared to address. There are some proposals that you have in front of you to address the council. Consider them. Also consider that ecology, biology, it's an observational science. There are groups of people in this room and in this state that have thousands of years of observational experience. That is true knowledge. That needs to be considered as well. There are valid ways of knowing, valid ways of understanding, and in concert can make a real difference. So what I would encourage everybody here is to work with the process that we've got. Think of another process that can add value to it. Work together to solve this problem, because if we continue to do what we've always done, we won't get anywhere other than where we are. So thank you very much for having this listening session.
Thank you. Could you come on up? And Josh Revak is my state director. He's been working on getting the temp down. They said it's like 20 minutes. And of course, a lot of you know Tyson Fick. He's my fish guy. So.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brian Ritchie. You're going to have to forgive me. I actually don't really like public speaking, which is funny, yeah. Laugh it up. My name is Brian Ritchie. I was born and raised in Homer. I did all my schooling there. I went to high school there. I currently have a master's degree in fisheries science that I also finished in the state of Alaska. I've done almost all of my education here, my undergrad, my master's, high school, everything. I own a business in Homer. I've made it far enough. I've worked really hard. I've got 3 boats, an office. I have 13 employees. I kind of want to piggyback on something I heard Keenan talking about, because I think it really, really matters. In all my education in this state, I also forgot to mention I am the chairman of the advisory panel here at the NPFMC. In all my experiences in my education in the state, the most I've learned about tribal peoples in this state, the people who really matter here, was 2 days ago at a training that we had from the First Alaskans Institute. And you know, all that schooling, and I learned more in about 10 hours about how the structure works than I had in my entire life. And if that doesn't say something about the system we're in right now and how that needs to be fixed, I don't know what does. So yeah, Melissa talked about how she asked for, in October, she asked for 2 designated advisory panel seats. That was before this training. I was an ignorant person. I voted against that. I would have voted for it knowing what I know now. And yeah, I just want to say I think we need to fix the education system in this state.
Serena Fitka just came back from Canada, so here she is.
Hi, good evening. It's been a long day. My name is Serena Fitka. I'm Executive Director of the Yukon River Drainage Fisheries Association, and I just came back from Whitehorse from the Yukon River panel meeting, because yes, the Yukon River does flow into another country, and so we must have treaty obligations. It was very sad, very hard, very long days, 5 days, meetings. But one thing that was common was the lack of our salmon on both sides of the border. Another thing that was discussed was the loss of our culture. We, as Native people, both in Alaska and the First Nation people of Canada, who have been not able to fish for decades and have been warning us that our salmon are going to be gone. And here we are. For 3 years, the Yukon River people have not fished. They have not got their nets wet. They have not caught one salmon. Every single person in every community on the Yukon River did not get smoked salmon for 3 years. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine not going to the store and getting something, a staple from the store, and you can't get it anymore? Nope, no more bread, you're done. No bread. No bread for 3 years, you're done. Too much carbs. But that's how we feel, something that's been in our lives. And it's not just food, and I don't have to tell Mary that, she knows. It's our cultural well-being, it's our identity, it's something that is attached to the food. We've been through cultural adversities. I gave testimony to the Yukon River panel. I am a product of colonization. My dad was shipped off to boarding school at the age of 5. My mom, she was beaten for speaking her native language. But one thing that remained constant, and one thing that is resilient in our native lives, was our food, the gathering of our food. And so we got no more food, we got no more salmon. Guess what? Our moose populations are down. People in the upper river, Yukon River communities can't even get a moose because they don't have moose up there enough. They don't have enough moose for them. Guess what? The caribou herds are moving. So it's affecting every single thing. No salmon. What are the bears going to eat? It's affecting it's not just affecting the salmon and us as people, it's affecting every single species that is connected to the salmon. And like I said, I don't have to tell Mary this, she knows it. So during the Yukon River panel, too, during public testimony, someone brought up a really good point. Well, we got the Yukon River panel, and we told the Yukon River panel and the Canadians, guess what's happened down in Anchorage? Got North Pacific Fisheries Management Council. Well, we got the ADF&G, we got U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Why don't we just get you guys all together and talk and find a solution? So I think that's one thing that I could bring to the table is we need to bring all the players of the game. We need to bring all the fishers, all the industry, all the subsistence users. Just let's sit down and talk and hash it out.
Brianna Serena. Who wants to go next? Okay, here we go. Wait, sorry, Chief George. No, Chief Gary, just a minute. Let me talk. You want to come up here? Sorry. Like you, hey you. Yeah, sorry.
Hi everybody, my name's Nick Wetstein. I've been in Alaska with the Ambic River Lodge for 12 years now, guiding. But I grew up in Florida, commercial fishing, recreational, and guiding. What I wanted to bring is, I've seen so many fisheries in Florida collapse and be rebuilt, and that's all been due to moratorium on new boats coming into commercial fisheries, bycatch caps, and quota. And it's direct. You see it as soon as it happens, it starts to come back up. And that's really just what I wanted to bring up, that something from another place that worked. That's about it.
That's maybe one thing I want to copy Florida on. Okay, okay. Anybody who wants to go next? Eric Deacon, do you want to go next? Oscar?
Guyana, good evening. My name is Oscar Ivan. And first of all, and foremost, I grew up a subsistence lifestyle. And I miss the days of plentiful salmon. Because that is life in our families, in our communities. I also am part of and work for a CDQ group. I have been the subject of the very first group of people that were issued citations on the Kuskokwim River when it first closed. Painful, very empty feeling to have your nets and your catch taken away. You feel not only for yourself, you feel for your family. How do I balance that? I work for a CDQ group, and I look into myself. But one thing I rely on is the observation that were taught us in our culture. Observe, be observant. Past couple decades, the ice shelf doesn't freeze like it used to. Thinner and not as extensive. Our seal hunting time has been cut in half or more. Snow machines falling, becoming more dangerous. People in the village anticipate that very first seal hunt because they share, and sharing is part of our culture. In the past 3 years, we rely not only on salmon, we rely on tomcod, we rely on herring, sculpin that I grew on before electricity came around, before we had freezers. But after that 2018, if I remember correct, that heat wave, we went beach seining for tomcod in our river in the fall time. Nothing. Same thing for those sculpins, we call them Nachtulik, they're called Irish Lords, and Bering Cisco. Just not there. Something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. The landmarks that we used to travel in the tundra, all flattened. Pingos melting, the permafrost melting. So what I'm getting at and getting to is that observe, listen, talk to each other. And when it comes to my CDQ work, it's governed from each village, People that experience climate change and the hardship of not being able to subsistence fish. So there's that sensitivity. And we also need economic development in addition to subsistence. ANCSA was a pretty big thing when it came around. Other than that, industrial and manufacturing jobs are never going to come out to remote areas of Alaska, just due to its remoteness and cost of doing business. And so when CDQ came around, it brought a lot of help to students, scholarships, youth employment, heating fuel assistance. Each CDQ group tailors their economic benefits to their region. And what I also learned was that in operating a factory trawler, very heavily regulated. And as subsistence fishermen and owners of a catch or processor, we've traveled to the home port and communicated to them in no uncertain terms the importance of managing their fishing operations. And so this comes from the heart as a subsistence user and as an economic engine. So one accomplishment that we have is we've come together tonight, and hopefully more in the future.
Oscar. Chief Gary's going to go, and then Lynette Moreno-Hines.
Thank you. I know I spoke once before, but I forgot an important thing. I'm also on the United Nations Food and Agricultural International Planning Committee Working Group on Small-Scale Fisheries at the Committee on Fisheries. And one of the things that the United States has also signed on to is the Small-Scale Fisheries Guidelines. And it is supposed to be human rights based. And most of the fisheries that are in this room, the subsistence fisheries, are in the small-scale fisheries. And that's what I'm saying, is it needs to be human rights based. The other thing is, some of these guys are right that there are some problems with the fishing, like the Deshka. There's pike in there now. It used to be one of the biggest king salmon fisheries around. Now there's no king salmon, basically. And that's what I wanted to say real quick. Thank you very much for letting me speak again. Bye.
Thank you, Chief Gary. Lynette Moreno-Hines.
Good evening, Mary. Thank you for letting me speak, and the room for being so quiet for all the speakers to be able to be heard. My name is Lynette Moreno-Hines. I'm wearing a Mary Peltola campaign shirt. And so I've been a cab driver here for 41 years in Anchorage, Alaska. And what I have to say is the truth. And when I drive, I pick up a lot of different people, whether they're Native people or not Native people, whether they're Alaskans or non-Alaskans. And what's the most alarming thing to me is when I do pick up Alaska Natives that come in for AFN, they come in for the basketball tournaments, they come in for doctor's appointments, they come in from all over Russian Mission, they come in from Holy Cross, they come in from Utiavik, they come in from everywhere. And what's so alarming is that I don't hear the state really reaching out, because we have this crisis. The fisheries is in crisis. The game is in crisis. And it seems like only the richest peoples can go and get the access to this. And this is not right. The people here need to be taken care of. And I'd like the bycatch trawlers to be able to donate, to the people that are the most hungriest with their families, the elders, the kids. They need to eat. And it's not trying to put out our hands for government welfare. No, that's not the right thing to do either. But when you got people that are starving to death up there, it does not make any sense. You use your common sense, and you need to do it now. The state of Alaska, the governor on down, all the way down to our mayor. We are in the biggest village in Alaska. There is 25% of Alaska natives that live right here. I know. I was a census taker at one time. And I know that there are people that are working for us. I'm very proud of our people that live here. And I would like to see more cooperation, more working together, like it was already stated from different individuals in this room. Thank you very much. And I also noticed that as a cab driver, the last couple years, I mean, this has to be said, out at the airport, what I noticed is that there's a ton of salmon that are in coolers that have been taken back, tons and tons of fish. When I hear the stories of the Alaska Native people that are starving, it just upsets me to my stomach. And it's not right. Thank you very much.
You know, and Lynette talks about starving, and I don't think anyone's literally starving, but there is certainly food insecurity, and we don't have the same nutrition that, as Alaskans, we just don't have that same kind of nutrition. Who is there? Anyone? Okay, yep. Come on up. Yeah, you got to come up here. Sorry, everybody wants to see you.
No, they don't. Thank you, Congresswoman Peltola, for this opportunity. My name is Julie Kavanaugh. I live in Kodiak. And my song and dance is a little different. In being engaged in the council process, I hear concern about timeliness all the time. Matters not being picked up, not being able to be picked up, and it kind of ends up being a lack of resources, not a lack of quality work or anything like that. But I hear time and time again that issues aren't being picked up or moved forward due to a lack of resources. And I think that that might be something you could help the council with. And I'm going to leave it at that, pretty simple and basic. But I think that the people come to the council, they're frustrated because, as it was said earlier, it takes years and years for things to even be picked up, let alone move forward. And the resources, which refers to staff, they're doing the best they can and they're doing really good work. But I think that they could use a lot more help.
And I want to say, about my predecessors, all of them in DC have worked so hard. I mean, Magnuson Stevens has Ted Stevens' name in it. Don Young used to say it should have been named the Young Studs Bill because he initiated in the House. But this last go around, there was 300, how much? Yeah. Close to 300 million in disaster, but we can't just manage, we can't just appropriate for disasters. That's not sustainable, and that's not, we don't want to do that. John Ross, do you want to say something?
John Ross, she'iji, inushin denainak she'ijich dilan, she'tzitsatna yaganin hitana gaila. I'm from Cook Inlet here, Denina Athabaskan, and I think it's great that we're having this discussion, and thank you, Mary, for making this available. I'm working now for the Ocean Conservancy with indigenous-led conservation, and I agree with what Gary said about human rights. That needs to be part of the picture. The Cook Inlet EEZ issue is on the table right now. you know, state management versus federal. I know until very recently, there wasn't a lot of tribal consultation, so I'm glad to see that NOAA Fisheries and the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council and are doing more with that issue to engage with the tribes and to develop protocol for formal consultation. I'm also glad to see with the Bering Sea area, the local knowledge, traditional knowledge, subsistence task force, and the protocols they've developed that are now coming forward, and I hope that the council will seriously consider that work and the on-ramps that were developed for that. I know with our Cook Inlet tribes, we were more in favor of federal management for the Cook Inlet EEZ, primarily because we have a better opportunity and avenue for success with the feds, because there's at least some respect for tribes. And just last year, the state of Alaska formally recognized tribes in Alaska, 1 year ago. And so I hope that more will come from that. I don't know what else to say, but I'm glad that the discussion is happening, and it's also nice to see young people going to the Tamamta Fisheries program, and there's a lot of things to be hopeful for at the same time, but thank you.
Yeah, and that program, the word Tamamta, it means all of us. Is that right? And that really does mean all of us. It's not just a Native program. It is for everybody. Who else would like a turn at the microphone? We have 30 more minutes. Okay, in the blue, and then Mike Williams. Yeah.
Excuse me. My name is Gregory Tyler, and as you can see by my hat, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm a Saints fan. Anyway, I got here in 1978 in the Air Force, and I went AWOL when they gave me the assignment to come here because I didn't know anything about Alaska. So I was trying to get in trouble to get my assignment canceled. It didn't work, and they sent me anyway. So I came here under protest. I got here in March of '78, and within 3 months, I changed my assignment from 1 year to 3 and got my family to come up because I fell in love with the beauty of Alaska. Getting up every morning and looking at those mountains, going fishing, and limiting out every time I went fishing got me hooked. I fish, I have kayaks, I have a motorhome. I've been to a lot of the villages installing equipment. I've been a telephone tech at the early warning radar sites. I've worked up on the North Slope, and I've been a token almost everywhere I've gone. And I'm saying that to say this, I'm just a sports fisherman, but I'm so concerned about it that I came here. And I'm speaking for people like me, who, when I started fishing, I limited out almost every time I went. I looked at fish, you can almost walk on it. And in the last 15 years, I've taught my wife to fish, and how many times we've gone and come back with no fish. 1 fish, 2 fish. Now, I'm not a scientist, and I don't get a say. I don't know what the problem is, but I feel for subsistence and business people and what they're going through, but we are all going through it. I live here. I love Alaska. They're going to bury me right here in Alaska. But when you start talking about working together, don't mean a thing if you don't have people that's going to go above and beyond. My wife is in the bathroom right now, and I want to give her some props because I don't want to embarrass her when she's here. But she worked 37 years for the National Park Service in concessions. So anybody who did business in a national park had to get their permit through her. I have never been more proud of anyone than they had a meeting like this in Glen Allen. And when the delegation from Alaska came and they was introducing everybody, when they called her name, everybody got up and gave her a standing ovation. And I'm sitting in the back shocked. But then all of these people were saying that they had never worked with anyone who went so above and beyond to help them with their problems when they called and got pushed around and just blowed off, that she was so well known that they heard her name and they gave her a standing ovation. And in this room and in this state, in this country, we need more people that go above and beyond to try to fix these problems. I don't want to see commercial people suffering. I definitely don't want to see consistent people suffering. I definitely don't want to see me suffering when going out and coming back with no fish. I love the beauty, but I love my fish too. I don't know what we can do, but I am willing to do whatever I can, and I'm here because this is something that we all know is a problem. I don't have any scientific information to say what's going on, but for all the years that I have been here, I'm not 30, I'm 30 plus 40. I still fish, I kayak, I have a motorhome, I love Alaska. Whatever you intelligent, smart people can do to fix this problem, please work together. Go above and beyond. Find some solutions. So let's work this out so that generations of my children and yours can enjoy Alaska. Thank you.
Tell me your name again.
Gregory Tyler Sr.
Okay, thank you, Gregory. This is Mike Williams.
Good evening. My name is Mike Williams, Senior. I'm a lifelong subsistence hunter and fisherman from Makiak, Kuskokwim River. And we have had thousands of years of experience in managing our fisheries, managing our lands, managing our moose, caribou, living off the land. And that's what we have, that track record for thousands of years. And I got a glimpse of that experience when we had no electricity, no no television, no TVs, no phones at home. And we lived off the land, fish, you know, camping, and we always had dogs. And, you know, we still have those dogs. I ran 15 Iditarods and 29 Cusco 300s. I traveled thousands and thousands of miles on a dog team across Alaska. Of course, I love Alaska too. I'm from here. Two things. The Board of Fish and North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, they set policies. Those are the two bodies that set policy. And we have to live by that policy. And right now, there seems to be some winners and losers. And you just heard Serena Fitka. 3 years of no fishing in the Yukon. And you heard from Charlie Wright. No fish, no salmon. Kuskokwim River, we're suffering. The families are suffering. So where is the balance? We need to find that balance. And I'm really glad that you're here doing the listening session right here this evening, Mary. I had a wonderful opportunity to work with Representative Peltola for 5 years. And or longer than that. My mind is going away. I'm 70 years old. No, but I really appreciate the focus on this issue. And I fully agree that we have to equalize the balance. And right now it's tipped. And we have to equalize it, and that's what I'm hearing. And the only way we can do that is for Board of Fish to do its work, to set that policy so we can finally see those chums on the Kuskokwim. Last 2 years ago, I got 2 chums. Last year, I got 40 chums. And we always had 30, 40 dogs, always, all of our lives. And we've been suffering trying to feed them and getting all other species to feed them, let alone those, my family. It's been real hard the last 10 years. And, but yes, we have to equalize it. And the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council has to do something. The Board of Fish has to do something. Those are the only 2 bodies that can make things work. So let's equalize the playing field. And we can do that. And I know about the tribal consultations with 229 federally recognized tribes. And we've been coming to these meetings and testifying and testifying and testifying. We have to keep on doing that. To be heard. Thank you very much, Mary.
Way on a mic. Okay, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but I didn't know if Marit Carlson Van Dort, you don't have to, or Rudy. I know some of these comments are directed at the governing bodies, but I know you don't speak for the entire body. You don't. If you're not prepared, that's okay. It's 9:30 at night on a Thursday, 9:45, almost 10. Okay, here's Marit.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marit Carlson Van Dort. I'm the chair of the Alaska Board of Fisheries. And first and foremost, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. I'm here to listen and to learn from everybody in the room. And I just, any opportunity to hear from Alaskans, to hear from users, to hear from fisher people, commercial, subsistence, sport, you name it, is incredibly valuable and very important. And that's why I'm here, was to listen and hopefully chat with some folks. And thanks again, Mary. Appreciate you.
I think the fact that we're all here at almost 10 on Thursday night is a testament to how much we care. Rudy, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Rudy Cicada, and up until a couple weeks ago, I think many of the folks that knew me, what little folks that did, knew me because of my young son at the time, 10, was actually a pro angler for Hobie Kayaks, Kokatat Dry Suit Company, as well as Alaska Raft and Kayak here. Many of you may have seen my videos on YouTube. Yes, I was once a YouTuber. I have several hundred videos up on kayak fishing here in South Central Alaska, and what a great experience that was. But I think one of the things that we can take away from here is that, you know, groups, the tribes, CDQ, commercial fishermen, the groups need to work together for sure. But individually, I believe that we can do things that make a difference as well. One of the larger regrets that I have in my life, I grew up in Kenai. I went K through 12 in Kenai, Alaska, and boy, I am sure that I contributed to the decline of king salmon in the Kenai River. As I look through my young photos, every day I'm hammering kings. I'm letting go 40-pounders. I want that hen, you know, that's loaded with eggs, because I'm Japanese, and we love eating the eggs, much like the native folks, Native Alaskans that work with me. And you know, because of that, I haven't fished the Kenai Kings in over 15 years. And so, but I think many of you would be surprised that I'm actually, and maybe you have read in the commercial fisheries, that some person that was nominated by the governor for the council process, well, that's actually me. And it's and people that only read those articles think that I'm only on the trawl side. But because of the virtue of the CDQ groups being involved in all of the different fisheries in the Bering Sea, and we're even fishing a little bit in the Gulf, I think that, I need to be able to bring a balanced approach for not only the trawl groups, but as CDQ, we do long lining, we do crab, I sports fish. The company I work for as the chief operating officer is governed by 20 folks that come from the villages that live on the Kuskokwim River and the Yukon River. So sometimes, maybe mistakenly, we go up, we have fairly good bycatch numbers. I think they're better than many of the industries because we are governed by those 20 folks. We proudly go in and talk to them, and they kind of say, hey, is that number, can you get that number lower? And so it is a constant battle to fight to make sure that we balance, as Oscar pointed out, who's one of my colleagues, to balance the very important economic development that is required in our 20 villages. Some of the poorest communities in Alaska, 14 out of 20 don't have running water. And so I'm actually proud to be able to say that I work for coastal villages, I work on behalf of the 20 communities, and I'm very proud of the other 5 CDQ groups that do the same for the total of about 30,000 people in Western Alaska. But I want to assure everybody here that I am an Alaskan first. I am an immigrant, but I have been here since '71 when I was 5 years old. My promise to you is that I will do everything I can to represent all Alaskans, and I think it's important that each one of us take the right step to do what we can to preserve what we love. So the starting point here is to be able to talk, and Congressman Peltola, we very much appreciate the time. I mean, it's late for you as well, and so thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rudy. And we have another person eager to talk, and then we have about 5 more minutes. Okay, thank you.
So my name is Chelsea Riddell, and I also work for a trawl group, but I'm not going to say some of the other things that we've heard today. I also sit on the advisory panel, and we've all had a very long day listening. And it's heartbreaking to hear the stories that we heard today and have been hearing since the rivers collapsed. And the one thing that I heard from everyone is love, and love for who we are, our people, our land, and the water. And I think sometimes people wonder why a young person who, I am not from Alaska, I will admit that, but I've made it my home, why I would want to come work for those big bad trawlers. And it's also because I believe in the work that they do, how much they care. I have watched them learn new technologies. I work for a bunch of nerds. They're in their wheelhouses trying to avoid salmon. Prior to working for trawlers, I was a fisheries observer. I've worked throughout the Bering Sea extensively, and I wish that when people talk about factory trawlers, that they see all of the different people that benefit from that. And it's not just CDQ groups. I have met some of the most amazing people from around the world that work 16-hour shifts, that are incredible people also caring for their families. And talking about the people I love doesn't negate everyone else's testimony about the things that they love. But I think we need to continue to find ways to work together because we all care about what we do. And things are changing faster than the council process can handle them. And I'm a relative newcomer here, but my door is always open. My contact info is on the council website, and I am here for the long haul to make a difference and make Alaska a better place and make sure that everyone has food to eat. And thank you for being here so late at night.
My pleasure. We're going back to the crab fishermen again. Here we go.
Thank you much. want to say thank you for coming here tonight. Appreciate it. And if there's an ask from myself and perhaps ABSC, Alaska Bering Sea Crabbers, we are, I guess, blessed with the fact that we are FMCA qualified, and perhaps Kenny can help me with the acronyms. I forget at the moment what they all mean. But basically it means we can negotiate as a whole and not go against the antitrust rules. And that goes to fishermen, farmers, and I think baseball. But yeah, what I think what our ask would be tonight is if you could help us get maybe a little more status with USDA, and that farmers, and they have crop insurance, they have all of these extra stuff. It doesn't apply to fishermen, but everything, all the laws that we have applied to is all cut and paste from the farmers, but it really doesn't apply or translate to fishing. So if there's an ask from us, and like I say, Alaska Bering Sea Crabbers, if that's something that we could work on. We have disaster relief this year, I believe, in the amount of $300 million, and it's been a really speedy process compared to in the past. It's usually a 4 or 5 year process. I think we're looking at 2 or 3. So, but if we were under some of those equivalent projects under USDA, it would be almost immediate. So I think that would be a tremendous help from us, and I really appreciate you being here tonight and listening to all of us. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Who wants to close us out? Nobody? Everybody wants to go? Oh, wait. You close us out? Oh, me close us out. Okay. So there's one more guy, or there's 2 more guys back here. Could we please listen? One more person, and then I'll be very brief in closing out.
I'm Bob West, and I lived in Kodiak for quite a while, and we used to fish king crab, not even tank down. We just put a wooden false deck on the seiners and go out and fish 5x5s right out in front of town. Be back and sleep in our own beds at night. And they're gone now. You can't do that anymore. And there was king crab right, you could catch them right off the dock in Homer. And it's just, some things end, you know, and that's just the way it is. So they said it was parasites is what killed the king crab.
Thank you for that, Bob. And my friend Harry Crawford is over here. We served in the state legislature together. We were both in the state house. He's an iron worker. He helped build the pipeline here in Alaska. But one of my big takeaways from our time in the legislature is you can't build relationships just by going to the meetings and sitting across from someone in a really sterile, formal context. So I think having discussions is good. Going to dinner with the other side is good. We have to find forums where we can break bread and see each other as humans. You know, one of the things I really believe is the biggest threat to America is seeing each other as enemies, whether it's partisanship or factioning off the different fisheries or user groups. If we're going to solve problems, we have to work together. And I just want to put a plug in for traditional knowledge. We all embrace Western science. We all know that's where it's at. We have to rely on Western science. But the plug I want to put in for traditional knowledge, there are gaps in Western science. And James Nicorai, who spoke first about not pointing fingers, the traditional science he brought to the Kuskokwim was the correlation between king salmon returns and migratory birds, specifically Canadian geese. I never would have thought of that in a million years, but this is 12,000 years of observation, and it's remarkable and uncanny what that correlation is. Even when, like, the Canadian geese come back and then they taper off and then come back stronger, that the king run followed it that year. So it's not exact numbers, it's not an exact precise science, but there is science there, and it is valuable. And we have to be listening to someone who maybe doesn't have a CV, a scientific paper pedigree, someone who maybe is a retired electrician, who has this traditional knowledge. I think it's worth thinking about, and I just really appreciate all of your commitment to this issue and finding solutions, and I appreciate how respectful everybody was and really listening to each other. So thank you very much for coming. Oyana Chaknakbak.